All right, shop's an absolute wreck and mess. Been working on this bike a little bit here and there after work, trying to get a few things done before too much time slips by on this one. I don't want this one to stretch out in the project stage for a long time like the 400 did. I've actually had this bike at least 4 years just sitting in the back corner over here at the end. I decided to cut the frame, rake the forks, and I put a set of shorter shocks on the back of this thing, dropped the whole bike around a little over 5 inches, I believe. Let me show you where I'm at with this framework. And if you notice a few levels kind of placed here and there, what I did is I set the bike on a jack, motorcycle jack, hydraulic one. Then I went to this level, leveled the frame out, and then I set a level on the clamp, the top triple clamp for the bars, leveled that, and then from that point I checked how perpendicular 90 degrees to the ground this was, got that one set, did the same thing with that wooden level in the back, and I just maintained that angle. And every time I move something, like after I've cut the frame and repositioned it, made sure it was in the same position before I did any welding. What I did on the frame is I used a cutoff wheel as well as a Sawzall, notched into the frame. I also notched into this because once cutting, this area here stuck down to about here. So once I would finish, I would end up with this frame angle that kind of zigzagged up and would look terrible. So once I took triangle shape out of both sides, heated this up, and pressed it up, this will actually come straight across and flow a whole lot better. The frame itself is this round tube, the backbone to the whole bike. The rest of the framing is really carried through the motor itself. And then to add strength as well as more mounting points, this piece is added to the frame and welded to the next section. So once I cut through this round tube was notched. I took another section of frame tube or tubing that was same gauge steel and diameter. I cut a pie shape out, held it up in here, and then welded inside here all the way around, front and back, to repair what was cut on this. And then I made a little pattern out of basically a hard paper, kind of like a cereal box paper, and cut triangles for each side, which turned out like this. And then what I've done to those is I have, or I should say the one side so far, to replicate the pinch weld at the bottom is this bend down here, and then it comes up and around and will connect back into here in this sort of fashion. I'll get those welded up, but before I put these in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take strap steel and lay it on the inside back here, kind of like, I don't have anything small enough to fit in there. I don't think that'll fit in there. Oh well, basically. And lay it in here, weld it from the opposite side back in here, both sides to strengthen more. Just want to give as much structure to this and strength as I possibly can. Other side's done similar. Same type of setup. I just notched the back section here, heated it, pressed it up, and I'll get as much strength back in this thing as possible. Okay, here's a shot at the straps I was talking about laying inside. Got in from each side, did what I could to weld them in. But those are the straps I'm talking about. Just a little more structure since I've hacked into this thing. And then I'll lay those formed triangle pieces in and weld them all up. And call it good from there. So I got that one piece of triangle all welded up, actually hammered out in the shape I wanted, welded in there. I've left the bottom section until I get the other side in, and that's what I'm working on currently, is getting this piece formed up, fit the shapes and contours of the frame at this area. As you can see, it's got some bends to it, a little curvature, and that's what I'm currently going to do. So there's the piece I'll be putting in there. Got all the bends done. I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of see it. There's a little bit of a twist in it as well to match up with the frame bends and lines. I'll get it set up in here. There's one spot that I have to heat up. Once I get tacked, I'll have to tack it. Oh, get in focus here. I'll have to tack it or weld it up to this point and then tack it here where my thumb's at. And as you can see, that little bend, once it's hot, I'll hammer that into place and weld it up. So let me get set up and I'll get it welded in. Okay, so I got it tacked in there a little bit. You can see the strike marks of the hammer right here. And what I've done is, like I mentioned, tacked it in here, welded it up pretty decent there. Got it welded in here pretty good. And then I just started beating this area because it's nice and hot to get that formed angle. I think the bottom line where the pinch weld is on this component here flows pretty well. Actually, I'll put a picture in right about here. And you can see how it was going to be sticking down here quite a bit and just would have looked, in my opinion, goofy and terrible. Let me get this welded up the rest of the way, cleaned up, and get this part done. Alright, there's the right side all welded up and done. A little bit of cleanup on the weld marks, all the slag, the little tiny pieces all knocked off. That is probably all I will do as far as dressing it up. I don't want to take off the bulk of it because there's strength in the bulk. So that's how I did the cut and the rake of the forks, and also what I did with the rear on shortening the shocks and dropping the whole bike. Don't know if that'll help anybody, but that's what I'm doing on this particular build. Next section, I think I'm going to start on probably the back section and get the seat and all that area cleaned up, and maybe a little bit further than that. Oh, I've also got to do the repair on where the rear section was cut off the frame for the rear fender mount as well as the original seat mount. So I'm going to end her here and we'll get going on the next section.